Steph here, Relational Alchemist. How are you? Hope you're very well. Just finished some training for this morning. Did a couple of hours on these stairs here in Fremantle, the vicinity of Fremantle. I'll show you the stairs in a moment. Actually, I'll show you now. There's stairs. Go all the way to the top, up and down. Put a pack on, lift some weights, have some sandbags with me. Makes it an interesting journey. So I wanted to speak to you today about health and longevity. I wanted to speak to you today about how health and longevity and our association with health and longevity, how it impacts our lives, how it impacts our relationships, how it impacts who we are as individuals. And I'm going to flesh this out. I'm going to explain to you why. I'm going to have a seat here. This is nice. It's Australian bushland behind me. So, why is longevity important? Let me break it down. So there was a study done. This is a very interesting question. I've been asking this question of people of late quite a fair amount. In fact, I've been doing it for years. And people have been asking me as well. And that question is, how long would you like to live for? If you could live for a particular age, what would that be? If you could live for 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, infinity, would you? And there was a test done by Dr. Ewing, his name is, scientist. He did a 30,000 case survey, or case study. And he found that the vast majority of people wouldn't want to live beyond the age of 80. Now, given our circumstances, given our understanding of the human body currently, given our low socioeconomic status for so many of us, 3.5 billion people living in poverty, it makes sense that people can't see beyond their physical circumstances right here, right now, that it's so difficult to even envision living beyond 30 or 40 or even 50, 60. Because why would we want to live in destitute? Why would we want to live in a crippling state? Why would we want to live in unhealthy conditions, environmentally outside of our environment, but also internally where our health is suffering? And that makes sense to say that. But this exercise is an exercise. This question is a question in lateral thinking. It's a question in feeling beyond our current circumstances and tapping into our potentiality. Because why wouldn't we? Just think for a moment, if we had the economic means, if we had the health, if we were healthy, vibrant, living beings, why would we not want to live to 150, 200, 500, 800 years old? What's the problem with that? What would be the issue? Let's think about this. Let's think very openly for a minute. Now, what has this got to do with relationships? I'm going to get to that in a moment. And it's interesting how, for example, the USA spend copious amounts of money and resources allocated to curing diseases, but an infinitesimal amount, such a small fraction of that amount is spent on disease prevention. And USA is just one statistic that I'm aware of. When we look at other countries, the ratios, not all countries of course, but many other countries, the ratio is the same. We spend so much money, so many resources, so much attention on disease, of the curing of disease. But what about disease prevention? We have to tap into our old ways, our archaic, our ancient ways. Morning, Vanessa. Of Ayurvedic medicine, for example. Traditional Chinese medicine, Sky, good morning. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, Mesopotamians. There's so much wisdom in Vedanta, ancient scriptures, Eastern scriptures. There's so much wisdom in ancient wisdom. There's so much practical wisdom in ancient scripture and ancient philosophy. But how does longevity and health and maintaining a sense of health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, physiological health, how does it assist us in evolving, enhancing, improving, elevating our relationships? Well, primarily our relationship to self. We see as people, we need time to flesh out ideas. We need time to understand ourselves. We require time. We need to be patient. in order to gain in relationship, in order to understand, to connect, to evolve, to transmute, to transform, to really allow ourselves to be this grand present version of self in relationship. We require time to do that. And the more time we have as people, the healthier we are, the less we have to worry about and preoccupy our brain energy and our body energy with being healthy or gaining health or moving ourselves out of dis-ease. The more time we can allocate to relationships. Now, why relationships are important? Relationships are so important because they elevate us as individuals. They allow us to grow. They allow us to be grander versions of ourselves. We literally transform and transmute the entirety and the fullness of who we are when we allow ourselves to grow in relationship, because we learn so much. We learn, we gain knowledge, and then we apply that knowledge, it becomes wisdom, and we simply enhance our being. We literally become wiser, smarter, more cosmically and earthly intelligent human beings. So when we are talking about longevity, we're really talking about the integration of everything that there is in life. We're really speaking to the interconnectedness, the oneness, the unified consciousness of all that is. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that everything is connected. When you behave a particular way, it does not only affect you, it affects those around you. And if those around you are affected, they also affect those around them. And so the domino effect continues. If you think of Earth, if you think of our reality, for example, sand all over me. If you think of our reality as example, as like an interconnected web, yeah? And if you tug at one corner of that web, the ripple effect will be felt throughout the entire web. It's similar to like a pond. If you drop a small pebble in the pond, the ripple effect will move. You can't see my hand, but it will move throughout the entire pond. So this interconnectedness is predicated on the health of every individual in that web, in that ecosystem. We look at ourselves as a physical ecosystem, an emotional ecosystem, a social ecosystem, a spiritual ecosystem, for lack of a better term, a connected ecosystem. So we're talking about longevity. We're talking about really thinking about breaking boundaries, like just shattering preconceived notions of what it means to be healthy, of what our capacity and potential is for health, what our capacity and our potential is for longevity. We have to think beyond 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old. The reality is, if you're alive right now, add another, depending on your age, you can add another 5 to 20, 30 years to the average lifespan right now. We have to think like that as a collective, because we need to prepare for that. So we need to prepare for that economically, because we are bound by economic constructs in our society. We need to prepare for that emotionally. We need to prepare for that socially. We need to prepare our physical bodies for that. So what can you do? Who can you be? Sand everywhere. In the here and now, to allow yourself to be a more profound, connected, present, healthier version of yourself. Back to relationships for a moment, because this is really important. When we are in relationship, we move through different stages in relationship. We move through stages where we are deeply connected and bonded and we are endearing in that relationship. We move in aspects and spaces of the relationship where we were repelling in the relationship. And we ebb and flow and we flux in relationship in terms of how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to each other. And this occurs over periods of time, lengthened periods of time, for example. And I'm not talking about monogamous or non-monogamous relationships. That's a mute point and a relevant point. I'm talking about just generally the way we relate to ourselves and the way we relate to our environment. The people in our environment, our loved ones, whether it be our beloved or beloveds, whether it be family, friends, people that are close to us, strangers, etc., community, it doesn't matter. So we need time. The more time we have, the deeper we can go, the more we can discover about who we are, our human potential. And our physical body is a vessel, is a container for our conscious expression. It is a container for our mindset. It is a container for our behavior. It is a container for our expression, the way we move through the world. So the healthier, the more intact, the more integral, the more integrity that our vessel is and carries, the more profound our experiences, the more profound our ideas, the more profound our ability to move through life in such a way where we grow and we marvel at everything we experience. This is beautiful. Look at this. Like, it's just an amazing place. Like life, Earth is an amazing place. And we just need to look. We just need to be open. just need to understand who we are. And in doing so, we really allow ourselves an opportunity to experience life in a different way, in a way perhaps that we haven't experienced it before. And we can only do that when we begin to really think openly and begin to think laterally about who we are and extend and expand our possibilities for our human capacity and our human potential. And in doing so, we expand and nourish our relationships as well. And relationships are important because relationships are a major element of growth. Like, we are relational social beings. We are pro-social beings. We learn and we grow from each other. You know, it's interesting that, and there are some neuroscientists that say, not all, but some, that say that we have basically, the brain has evolved the way it has because of our ability to socialize effectively. That's powerful. Good morning to all. Think about that for a moment. Socialization, the effectiveness of empathy and social cohesion, our ability to cooperate, etc., has evolved because we've been effective in that sense. We are where we are today because of the way we socialize, because of the way we look at ourselves in community. So I want you to give some serious thought to this question. If you could live forever, if you could live for 500 years, 400 years, would you? Assuming, of course, that everybody's in that same boat. Everybody has that capacity and potential. You simply need to engage in certain practices, certain exercises, certain mindsets, reframing perspectives, vantage points, belief systems, models of reality, the way you look at the world, the way you feel about yourself, the practices that you engage in, the way you think about self, and you allow yourself the space to commit to growth. What would life look like? What would life look like living at 200 years old? But don't come from it from the space of today, from today's mentality of being run down, of being stressed, of being highly pressured, if that's what you're feeling, of thinking, wow, I've got another 100 years of bills to pay. Think expansively, think beyond that. Think that we're evolving as a species and everything is transitioning in our lives, including our socioeconomic, sociocultural, geopolitical models of the way we do stuff. The way we look at life and live life. We need to be able to look at life differently for life to be different. Life begins in here, it begins in here. This is our power. This is the inception. The seed is sown in here. And then it's physically manifested, or it's physically created, or it's actualized. Our potential is actualized outside of ourselves, but it begins with inner cohesion. And then we share those ideas through verbiage, through the written word, through artistic, creative expression, whatever it is. And then we talk about it, we connect with it, and then we place elements in motion to allow us to be those people, to live what we envision for ourselves. So longevity is so powerful for our growth and our evolution as a humanity, our collective mental and emotional evolution as a humanity. Wish you many blessings on your journey. Thank you for being here. Wherever you are in the day, have a beautiful day. And do something for me if you're watching this. In the comments below, just place a number, an age that you would like to live to. Don't put any limits on it. Maybe it's infinity, maybe it's 120, maybe it's 113, maybe it's 183, I don't know. Maybe it's 80, maybe it's 85, but put the number in the comments that you would like to live to and why. That's an interesting question. Something for you to ponder on your day. Many blessings, and I'll see you again very soon.